very conceivable on opposition side that in an ideal scenario where there were witnesses, where there's so much physical evidence that we do not need to look into the sexual history of the person. However, we have to be realistic and that there are many other scenarios that can happen and that sometimes physical evidence is not enough. And especially when we consider the fact that the consequences of making the wrong decision can condemn a person to death, then we have to err on the side of caution and we have to err on the side of the defendant. And so, we have to judge this debate on 3 levels. First, on the level of dynamism, on which team actually looked at every single realistic possible scenario and tell you why the ban must not happen on each possible scenario. Number 2, we have to talk about which team was the most responsive and answering every issue in debate, not just the pragmatic ones, but also the principled ones. And finally, on the 3rd level, the team that nuanced it best and best substantiated their arguments, looking at every angle, the mind of the person, and furthermore, the mind of the accused and the accused's rights, which they completely ignored. So first, there were 2 big issues in this debate. The first issue regarding the nature of the court, whether it should err on the side of caution or whether we should protect privacy at all costs. And the second issue on whether cross-examination regarding these sexual histories will actually provide key incriminating evidence. First of all, when we talked about the court, we talked about the nature of the law, we talked about how the law must always err on the side of caution. Because in some times, especially in the case of the United States, where rape is punishable by the death penalty, when human lives are being dealt with, we cannot ever compromise this when there is a small chance of doubt. Conceivable, if there are 20 possible scenarios where sexual history does not contribute anything to the case, but if there's just one case where sexual history happens, and that's very reasonable, sexual history will happen in just one case, then an outright ban, a blanket policy, is something unacceptable, that it is not worth condemning an innocent man to jail. And all they can say is, what is the relationship between cross-examination of sexual history? Why provide these links? However, we in opposition side have been very responsive and have answered why and the links in every single speaker. And that brings me to the idea of whether cross-examination will provide key incriminating evidence. Because when you look at sexual history, we look about the idea of the promiscuity, whether there was relationships with a person beforehand. For example, because one of the biggest flaw coming from government side is they automatically assume that the accused is already a criminal, that the crime has already been proven. However, for example, in the example which RJ gave, when he talked about the woman who was drunk, when the woman was drunk, she was very loose, she was not thinking straight. And at the time, she gave consent to this guy. And when she sobered up, she woke up, she thought, wait, I never gave consent, or did I? There's so many circumstantial things and so many factors that can affect the veracity of the statement. And that's why cross-examination is so necessary, to bring the veracity out, to weed out any inconsistency, to remove all traces of reasonable doubt. And all they can say to that is, cross-examination might even incriminate the accused more. Well, the fact that so much doubt exists just proves the need more to show that cross-examination must be made to clear out any doubt. And whatever the thing is, we cannot assume that the accused does not have a right to the fair trial, that automatically the victim must be protected when we have to strike a balance of these rights. We have to strike the balance of the rights of the accused to a fair trial between the balance of the rights of the prosecutor to his privacy. We say that life and then the idea of a fair trial outweighs any other value, choice, privacy, and anything in this debate. And ultimately, when we look at the team that provided the most substantiation, when we looked at it from the perspective of the accused, when we look at the mindset of the people, when we talk about these ulterior motives, government side never ever responded to any of these points. And ultimately, we won on both of these issues. And this is why you'll be seeing Southridge later.